Hello and welcome to the Prospa Small Business Series. I'm Frances Cook, Investments Editor for BusinessDesk. If you're a small business owner, you probably have lots of questions that you're usually left to muddle through and figure out by yourself. Earlier this year, small business lending specialist Prospa surveyed Kiwi small business owners to get an idea of what's keeping them up at night. And issues with doing business online was high on that list. So, thanks to the team at Prospa, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Now, before we get into it, Prospa has launched the new line of credit product from July 4th, which gives small business owners access to a convenient and flexible source of funds of up to $150,000. You can use it for almost any business purpose, including activities to help you manage day-to-day cash flow, covering unpaid invoices, buying urgent stock, and much more. If you're interested in finding out more about Prospa's line of credit, you can head to prospa.co.nz. But before you do that, let's hear from today's guests about how to thrive in the digital world. So I'm joined now by Becky Irwood, founder of Fed, and Duncan Shand, founder and managing director of Young Shand. Now, Duncan, Prospa conducted a survey of small business owners and found that 13%, that's more than 1 in 10, said that doing business online is a top priority for them and expanding their digital presence. Top priority. But it's hard. It's easier said than done, right? What can be some of the difficulties there?
Look, I think, for a small business owner, getting anything done is quite hard, right? You're bombarded by so many things in your day. You don't have the luxury of just being the CEO. You're often the salespeople, the support team, making things as well. So to me, I think half of it is deciding what you're going to focus on and then making a plan to do it. So, I think if you can get through that and decide that you really need to make this a priority, it's about choosing what not to do so you can focus on making some solid plans to actually get that business more digitally enabled.
That's true. There's so many options. And I feel like as well, there's so many options and there's been so much change. I mean, How much has the digital world changed in the last 5 years?
I honestly don't think it's changed that much. I mean, I think probably 10 years ago, 15 years ago, very different. Over the last 5 years, it's always changing. Don't get me wrong, it's always changing. But I think some of the services that were there 5 years ago are still with us now. So I think it is about, it's about focusing, deciding what you're going to do, and then putting a plan in place to become more digital and get online. I think one of the traps that New Zealand businesses fall into is just doing okay, or, just doing well enough here. It's that number 8 wire mentality that we fall into. And I think over the last 2 years, what COVID has shown us is New Zealanders are very happy to shop online, and they've leapt it online at an accelerated amount over the last period, over the last 2-3 years. So I think New Zealand businesses need to get online and need to really have a slick service, otherwise they're going to be left behind.
And you mentioned there about the need to focus. I mean, I think that's absolutely true. When you've only got a certain amount of time in the day, a certain amount of resources, you've got to focus.
Yeah.
So when you're weighing that up, I mean, what sorts of things should people be deciding between, and how do you work out those priorities for your business?
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because every business is slightly different. But I think there are some of those core things that are going to be the same, right? Every business needs to attract new clients. Every business needs to tell their story. Every business needs to manage their existing customers, and every business needs to be able to make a sale and then service and follow up. So there are some things that are core, and I think it's about understanding with your business where those weaknesses are. For instance, if you've got lots of people walking in the door, maybe worrying about how you're generating leads isn't as important as actually being able to transact things more easily to speed things up in the back office. So I think there's probably 4 or 5 kind of key digital, platforms or needs that you need to look at to decide where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are, and then obviously try and address those weaknesses first, or maybe you're trying to amplify your strengths and make those even stronger. That's another way to go.
Yeah. And Becky, when businesses are looking at these things, there are obviously different digital tools that can help, but there's only so many resources to go around and decide what to invest in. I mean, how do small businesses look at that and try to weigh up what's going to give them the competitive advantage for the amount of resources they've got at their disposal?
Yeah, it's a good question. Prioritising, to Duncan's point, is very important. It is a challenge, particularly in our space where we've got a lot of big players who have got, extremely advanced, platforms. The digital fluency is very high as well among consumers, and that means their expectations are very high. And the plus point is that that means they're better able to self-serve. But the other side of that is that it means their expectations for how your site should perform are also incredibly high. So you do need to prioritise, and that's about reading your data. You will know from dealing with your customers on a day-to-day basis what those pinch points are and where those priorities should be.
Okay, so when you're looking at that and you're weighing things up and you're saying, okay, this seems to be a problem, that not so much, and then you just have to really direct the resources there, right? I mean, what sort of tools are around to help people, and what should they be thinking about?
There's a huge amount of tools out there, depending on what it is that you need for your business, that deliver you data on customer behaviour, on sales data, on analytics in your site. All of those things are things that you should be looking at on a day-to-day basis, because good reporting and good data is really at the crux of growing your business. So, I think small businesses should really be looking at what tools are out there and what are the priority tools that are out there that are really going to help deliver them the data they need to better manage their business.
And it's tricky, right? Because you'll often be looking at sort of more entry-level options because not so much to go around when you're a smaller player.
There are so many good tools out there. I mean, I think it's a misnomer. I mean, that you have to spend a huge amount of money to have access to really, really great tools and great software. Sure, of course, big companies are spending a lot of money on custom builds and custom software. But there are a lot of things out there, actually, that are excellent. For example, Shopify, which is a platform that we use for our business. This is a platform that you can customize, but you've got this huge company out there that are doing all of these developments on your behalf that you can have access to at not a great cost, actually.
So I couldn't agree more. I think that's one of the things that digital has done, is it's closed that gap between a small business and a big business. I mean, 20 years ago, to compete with a big business, you couldn't, right? You couldn't have a shop, you couldn't make ads, you couldn't promote your business to people very easily. With this whole digital transformation, being able to use the tools like Shopify, like MailChimp, like Active Campaigns, all of these tools enable a small business to have a really strong professional image, be able to connect to customers, be able to manage them, and be able to promote to their audience in a very targeted way. Yes, you still need to invest. Yes, it's still going to cost money, but you're not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars doing it.
So is it basically the idea of don't turn your nose up at the sort of the out of the box solutions? You're not needing to get everything custom. You can start with these generic products like Shopify, MailChimp, and then build from there to customize it after that.
100%, yeah.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Yeah. When it comes to, okay, let's drill down into it a little bit. So when you're building the growth, the presence of your company online and just alerting people that it exists, and Duncan, what are some strategies that help people with that?
I think fundamentally you've got to strip it right back and think about you as a business. So who are you serving? How are you going to compete, right? So it's a little bit of marketing 101, or it's kind of strategic thinking. How are we going to win in the market, and who are we serving? And you've got to figure that stuff out right. Because if you get that stuff wrong, no matter how good a job you do, you might be destined to fail. So I think it's about making sure you're positioned to win in the marketplace. Then I think it's about crafting your story, making sure your story is right and it's interesting and it's connecting. And then when you've got that, then it's about creating some content. It's about sharing those stories. And so, of course, we've got social media out there, whether it's, Facebook, LinkedIn, or TikTok, depending on the sort of market that you want to connect to, and being in those places, promoting those posts, for people that are searching for your products, being there in AdWords, so I think there's lots of different different places with online you can start to magnify or get your awareness out there and tell your story without spending lots of money. And in fact, a lot of the time you're doing it in a way that is sharing content, sharing your expertise, sharing your point of view in a way that is authentic and helpful and a little bit organic, and hopefully you're kind of, you're not having to pay for it all the time.
Absolutely, yes. Anything you can do to save money is always helpful. And Becky, what do you think in terms of building that presence, letting people know that you're out there? How do you do that in the online world?
Oh, well, again, that's the beauty of being a tech-enabled business, is that you have all of this data and all of these analytics actually at your fingertips, which you don't have actually if you're an analog business. So it's really about reading that data and as Duncan said, using all of those various social and digital platforms, Google ads, YouTube ads, social media ads, and those are so brilliant now because you have the ability to very, very highly target who you are trying to reach, which, with traditional media, you don't often have that same level of targeting that you do, which you have in digital media.
Okay, what about when it comes to delivery of your product, your service? How does that change the tactics online, Becky?
Your brand really has to come through in all essences of those customer touch points. So whether it's, an email that you're sending, whether it's the product that you're actually sending in the post, or whether it's the online experience. If your brand, for example, our brand is all about making people's lives easier, that has to come through in our digital experience as well. So it's a core part of our brand promise to make the digital experience as easy as possible for our customers.
I think sometimes it's about thinking it right through. So from if I've never interacted with this brand before, what does the interaction look like when they arrive at my site? What do they experience, and what are they looking for when they're making an order? So it's thinking about each stage of that journey and making a deliberate plan for what experience you want your customers to have, and breaking it down, attracting them, the first interaction, a purchasing experience, a delivery experience, and kind of mapping that journey out. We sometimes just rush in and do things, but we forget to actually fix this part of it sort of slightly further downstream, which can trip us up. And
that can evolve actually, because while something might seem very obvious to you in your customer journey initially, what you can often find is that can evolve just by the questions that you might actually receive from customers, or how you can see that they're interacting on your site. You might notice through analytics that they've gone here, then they've gone back there, and and you're thinking, oh, well, why have they done that? That's not actually how we plotted it out. But that actually helps you to understand how they're experiencing it so that you can continually improve your site.
Absolutely. And we've talked a little bit about, the customer expectations, and I do think that's a tricky thing for people when you are competing with big businesses online that look very slick while the expectations get set pretty high.
Yeah.
Duncan, what sort of things do people expect, and are there easy wins that smaller businesses can get to help with that?
Yeah, well, I think people just expect responsiveness. I think I was in a meeting the other day, and there was a statistic around the fact that I think it was about 79 or 80% of sales are high, sales rates were 79 to 80% higher when someone responded within 5 minutes of an initial inquiry to someone that responded, 5 to 10 minutes. So that little difference there can make a massive difference in terms of your cut through to make a sale. So people want timely response, and I think that's good for small businesses. I think small business owners are probably more responsive than necessarily a big corporate where things might take a little bit longer to kind of go through the right channels to get responded to. So timeliness, accuracy, all of those sorts of things are really important.
Interesting. All right, Becky, your thoughts on that? What sort of things do people expect, and are there any easy wins there?
Yeah, like I said, the digital fluency is pretty high. So you do have this sort of pool of customers that are really able to self-serve, and they're able to, navigate their way around any issues. And then, of course, you'll have another set of customers that maybe don't have as much patience or as much skill. And so therefore you do need to have a good customer service in place to actually help to combat some of those issues. So, in our case, for example, we do have an 0800 number. There's pretty much always somebody available to answer that. We also have an online chat function on our site, so people can get a response fairly quickly. And we do also get people who will ask us questions via Facebook Messenger or Instagram Messenger, and we do have somebody on there to answer all of those inquiries. And I think, to Duncan's point, that's something that a small business can do really well, because a customer also wants to feel like a human being in the process too, and feel like they're being cared for, and that that their individual behaviours and individual preferences are being catered to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is a growing part of this trend, is that even as we head more and more online, the human factor remains important and actually almost becomes more important.
Totally. Yeah, I think, that you're mapping out that consumer journey using design thinking, and design thinking is all around, doing research with actual humans and talking to them about their needs, their wants, their desires, to really understand, what the problems or what the opportunities are, defining what could be, and then coming up with lots of different solutions that you could put in place, and then prototyping and testing. So, there's a design thinking process that you can work through, but at the heart of that, it's all about, making sure that you are trying to solve a problem that a real customer has, or trying to create an opportunity to do something better from a customer point of view. So, I think that's kind of really critical.
Where do you think things are going to go in the future then? If this is where we've been, where do you think things are going?
It's interesting. We're all going to be in the metaverse in a wee while, doing this with avatars and from our home. I hope not. But I think there's going to be, more technology to help us look and understand and identify and make better decisions at home. I mean, I think now the way that you'd go on a trip or buy a car, or even buy clothes, is drastically different than how we'd have done it 5 years ago, right? I think we do far more research online than we do now, and our confidence in some of our purchases and what we buy, without going into a store, is incredible. So I think just I think there's going to be an increase in the experiences. I think it's going to go away. I think we can do the physical, tangible process things online now. I think it's going to be an increase or an enhancement in terms of that experience that we have, either exploring something or playing with something, or really interacting with a brand or a service to kind of get a deeper, richer, more meaningful insight in terms of how they work. I think that's kind of be the difference, because I think the platform's there, that sequence, the processing, the e-commerce, that's all there. But I think being able to create a more interesting experience is kind of where we'll see more emphasis in the future.
Becky, what do you think? And is there any way that people can future-proof for whatever's coming next?
I think the technology already exists, but I think people's capability will grow, and people, as we go through the generations, we can talk about future generations and how digitally capable they are. They will get more out of those experiences and be better able to manage them. So I'm not sure the pace of technology can continue to grow at the same pace that it has. I think a lot of that stuff already exists, but I think as we go through those generations, those younger people that have grown up with it will get more out of that. We'll get more out of those.
I think there's a big fear that people don't move ahead because they're too scared to make the decision on what tool or what platform to use. I mean, I was in another presentation the other day with a CRM provider, and they were saying there's 13,000 different SaaS products out there in their space. Right? Wow. 13,000. How on earth are we going to evaluate out of all of those which are the right ones for us? At the end of the day, we need a website, so it's a CMS, we need a CRM, we might need an analytics platform, and we might need something with media. So there's 4 or 5 tools that we want. I think it's about, just making a decision, looking at the ones that a friend or a colleague or someone uses that and they're having a good experience with it, make a decision, use it, make sure they all connect and they can all join up. I think that's the most important thing, making sure the APIs or the integration with other tools is strong, and then try, learn, fail. If you're not in there, you're not going to be actually learning and moving ahead.
We're on our third CRM system in 4 years. So I think that's really important. We started on MailChimp, then we went to HubSpot, and now we're on Klaviyo. It took us 3 goes to actually find what was right. Klaviyo.
Klaviyo.
Which integrates really, really well with Shopify. It's actually the best integration with Shopify, which is what our platform is built on. So, try. It's only through trying and learning how to use it that you'll figure out what's missing and where you can get something better.
So get rid of that fear of failure, really.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, when you're online, that is the good thing you can do a lot, right? A/B testing, trying something and seeing the results. All of it is about trying and failing, so don't wait for perfection. I mean, I was talking to a small restaurant owner the other day. He's got 3 restaurants in Auckland, and they were wanting to do a big campaign, and I just started talking to them about, what they do now. And it's not much, but they had an email database of 8,500 people that they hadn't used. They weren't using it. So it's like, don't worry about a big ad campaign. Just start using your email you've already got, right?
Yeah.
So there are tools that people have right at their fingertips that they're probably not making the most of today. So there's probably things that people can do almost straight off the bat tomorrow that will make a difference to their business. It's just finding the time to prioritize and work on those things.
Fantastic. Well, that's a very inspiring note to leave things on. Thank you both so much for your time. That's Becky Eward from Fed and Duncan Shand from Young Shand. Now, if you still have unanswered questions from this chat, we are here for you. Leave a comment under this video. The team will be dropping by to answer as many questions as they can, and the best questions will also win a year's subscription to BusinessDesk. So get amongst. Don't forget, if you're interested in Prospa's new line of credit for your small business, head to prospa.co.nz to learn more.
I was in a bad situation when the second lockdown hit here in New Zealand. I had to cancel 3 tours in a row, and I had to get the money to refund everyone because I had a COVID policy. So when I had to refund them in full, I didn't have enough funds in the business account. So no banks wanted to loan me to start a business. No banks wanted to help me at all. I called a mate and told him my situation, and he goes, "Have you heard of Prospa?" And I was like, "Nah." And he was like, "They'll loan you." So I applied for it, and then really easy application process. And even the guy I was talking to on the phone, he loved the idea of backyard roadies. And I got the money in my account 2 days later, paid those refunds and continued business as usual. Prospa was very understanding, very easy to work with, and very fast, which I really appreciated because I didn't have time on my side.